this week's 5 questions with. I've got the fantastic Jaclyn Hughes from Ultimate Training Solutions here with me. Thanks for joining me, Jaclyn.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Oh, no, it's great. We've been talking a lot recently in the spa industry always, but also yourself and I have been talking a lot about retail training and ways that we can engage better with therapists and kind of boost those retail conversions. I know that a lot of spa directors, when I'm speaking to them, are saying that it's around 5 to 10%. And we know that it's possible to do better than that. So I've put together 5 questions and I'm going to do a quick fire round with you with 5 questions to get your opinion and learn a bit more about Ultimate Training Solutions. So can you tell us a bit more about your journey into the wellness industry, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually started off as a fitness instructor. So I'm a fitness instructor to trade. I was a personal trainer back in the day, but that seems like pretty much a lifetime ago. I was super lucky. My sport was taekwondo, and I used to compete for Great Britain. So I was in the British squad. And I worked as a personal trainer at some gorgeous hotels, like the Balmoral Hotel in Edinburgh.
Nice.
And I wasn't sure at the time, but I didn't realise just how much of a great exposure that was to be the personal trainer of the owner, Sir Rocco Forte. And that was my first kind of insight to the customer as king, and guest service and what's the difference between back of house and front of house. So I was very lucky to be exposed to great customer service from the start of my career. And then I took that with me to Hilton. And Hilton Hotels opened up a health club division called Living Well. And we were the first purpose-built health club in the whole of Scotland. So just to be part of that from pre-opening, to set that up, to run the gyms, to run the studios. And after my injury with taekwondo, I moved into more mainstream exercise and got into group fitness. So things like Les Mills, Body Combat. And that kind of became my next job. I was lucky to be asked to be a presenter with Les Mills.
Wow.
And trained. I know. I love it now. I still occasionally teach.
There's so much I don't know about you. I did not know about Rocco Forte, and I didn't know you were a Les Mills instructor.
Yeah, after all our coffees, I've still got some hidden secrets.
Yes.
Yeah, I love Les Mills. I love the brand, and I still teach. I've agreed to cover a couple of combat classes next month for a very popular instructor at my local Nuffield. So that kind of got me into presenting and delivering. And it was right at the time when fitness was trying to take out things like sunbed rooms and put in massage tables and massage beds. And after learning through Les Mills with the group fitness manager module, they were the first company to teach me official sales, like how to sell, what is a sale, why do people buy. And they exposed me to things like behavioural profiling, predictable behaviour, DISC, and also neurolinguistics, which is the NLP, the science of why we do things the way we do, or programming, and how language can affect how people buy, and what barriers we have to selling. So it's behavioural science, really. And then 25 years ago, I set up my own company, which thank goodness for good skincare. But 25 seems like a big chunky number, but it was 25 years ago. And I had two core founding clients. One was a health club chain called Holmes Place, which were one of the first companies to have spas and wellness with inside the gym. Their mission of one life, live it well, eat well, move well, feel well, almost sounds as if they were way ahead of their time. And I still work with them in Europe. I've just come back from Athens working with the team out there. And they have 3 gyms and 3 spas where they sell spa membership as well. And then my second client was the main move into what we know as spa, wellness, and skincare and beauty. And that was Steiner. And luckily for me, they had contracts on 200 cruise ships. So being able to train so many staff really kind of gave me some background knowledge of the different variables of all the different countries and the different behaviours. So that's when I started really to specialise in behavioural science and had a lot of exposure to a lot of different types of teams from all different countries and cultures with all different types of beliefs to selling and products and learning. So I suppose that's the start of the 25 years. And I'd like to say I'm super proud that every single client that I've got now you can trace back to those two original clients, like some kind of family tree that's just kind of growing. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And you know, I joked a minute ago, I did not know about Taekwondo and all of this. You've had such a great like set of experiences. And I think if you've worked in crews, and I say this a lot because I used to be group revenue director for Carnival for Spa, cruises are a really different kettle of fish with their retail. It's a
Yeah.
real focus for them is service delivery, getting treatments booked in, retail on the back. And, you know, as I'm coming back into the industry and chatting to various people, you can, when you start a conversation with someone who's worked for Steiner or One Smile World, all of a sudden you're like, no way, yeah, me too. And it's like a bond that you have. It's incredible. And I can see why people then use that as a way to go, oh, where did you learn that from? Oh, and connect back to yourself for the training. You've worked with some of the most respected brands in wellness, including Four Seasons. When it comes to high performing spa teams, what patterns do you see in how communication styles impact sales success?
I think the biggest pattern is you get what you focus on. So if you've got it as a revenue stream, if you've got it as a target, if you've got it as something you talk about regularly, then you have good success from it.
Mm,
And that might be guest service, that might be sales, it could be high standards, it could be guest feedback. And that's the bit that I think is missing a lot and quite interesting about Steiner. You know, it used to be about 60% sales to service, that they were non-negotiable. And I know the perception might be that it was maybe a pushy sale. I don't believe in pushy sales. But I think that they reached 60% with also amazing guest service.
mm,
I was lucky to be able to work with the cruise ships directly over the time as well, and had to present to some of the brands directly, like Carnival, like Celebrity, and someone like Crystal, where they would lose the contract for that ship if they were seen as being too pushy, because the guest doesn't know that they're external or they're a franchise model or something internal, not part of the ship. So the guest would complain if the service wasn't great. So we had to really balance sales and service.
mm,
And that was also true when I done a huge project quite a few years ago with Centre Parks. They were worried that if we increased the retail and the sales, that we would get bad service score. So at
mm,
the time, working with a guy called Justin Musgrove, we put together the model where we monitored guest service and retail spend. And the two weren't allowed to kind of change without the other. We had to lift both. So if one was dropping, it meant we were slightly off. So for me, the bit that kind of is missing, or what works or what patterns, is if you're not focusing on it, then the level is really low
mm.
and you're not treating it like a proper skill set. There's a lot of these numbers you said earlier, about 5 to 10%. I'm finding that the higher the price of the treatment and the more luxury end of some of the clients I work with, the lower the retail,
Oh,
like 4 or 5%. Yes. And I'm like, how is that? And the team are maybe saying, well, people can't afford to, they don't want to buy. And
mm,
I'm like, well, they're spending £2,000 for one night on a suite, and they just spent £350 on a massage. They
yes.
have money.
Yeah.
It's not true. So it goes back to the kind of neurolinguistics, the limiting beliefs, and you get what you focus on.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think a lot of therapists, when I hear them talking about retail, say, "Oh, but that's expensive." But then, like exactly as you just said, then they don't go back and think, "Well, that person spent 300 plus pounds on a treatment for 60 minutes of your time. They can afford a £100 body oil or cream or something to go with it." So I think it is about that kind of communication piece. And it's interesting what you say about the scores of service as well, because when I worked for Carnival, that was one of our biggest things to track, was not only the revenue, both treatments and retail, but also the guest service scores. Because if you, as you say, sales become pushy, retail becomes uncomfortable, you then can sometimes see a dip in those scores. And like you say, you can't have one offset the other, because then you have less guests and guests become savvy because they all talk. You know, people, oh, you know, I went to this place, oh, they're a bit pushy. People don't want that. They want a nice experience, but they also want something to take home, don't they?
It's very true. Like, no one really wants to be sold to, and selling is such a, it's got a kind of dirty tone to it, as if you're a salesperson or you're selling, as if it's wrong, as if it's pushy. However, we all like to buy. We all like to spend money, and the two are the same. And it's trying to separate the two, but understand that you need both. You can't have high sales without good service. And if you have good service, then you're going to have high sales. And it's okay to encourage people to spend. I done a bit of research for a client. It's probably about 2 years out of date, but the numbers that was spent on revenue for skincare was about £6 billion a year in the UK market, and that was 2022. And I took that resource from Professional Beauty website.
Yeah.
But the interesting fact was not the amount of money spent on skincare; it was the 18% of the people buying bought product that wasn't right or they didn't know what it was. So
Oh,
they're wasting money.
yeah.
And they're wasting money because there's not someone to advise them, or they're buying the wrong thing for them because they're taking it off a shelf, or they're taking it from a retail counter, or they're buying it on TikTok and it doesn't necessarily match their skin. You know, we've all been watching the certain masks go viral on TikTok, and they're being sold by an influencer who's making a ton of money out of this, and it's meant to be cool because they're an influencer. But we've got all these trained estheticians, therapists that have studied for years,
Mm-hmm.
who are not using that knowledge, or not able to understand how to give that knowledge to help the customer. The customer's going to spend money, so they should spend it with a trained person, rather than just a TikTok influencer, or buy something that's not good for their skin.
That is so true, though, isn't it? The rise of the TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. We should get on there. That should be our next thing.
Watch this space.
Coming soon.
I know that a lot of what you focus on is talking about DISC. Can you share how the DISC behavioural model kind of helps to bridge that gap? You know, especially as we're saying for therapists who might not see themselves as salespeople.
DISC is one of the core fundamentals to everything I teach. And I'm lucky I work in different sectors. You know, I work fitness, hospitality, beauty, clinics, addiction clinics, equipment suppliers, people who build gyms. It doesn't matter. Everything comes back to DISC and understanding why people do things the way they do. And there's a pattern. A lot of people who are good at giving treatments, delivering treatments, tend to have the same kind of core pattern. They're more S style, and S means steady. So they're reliable, they're consistent, they're great employees, they show up, they tend not to have a drama en route, have lost their car, their phone, missed their train. They're very consistent and steady. And once they're connected to a company, to a brand, they win the long service awards. They stay for a very, very long time. And they're also super giving and nurturing. So they also are attracted to things like nurses and caregivers. So they give. But the thing that makes them so good at delivering treatments, makes them feel very uncomfortable to retail to sell, because they are uncomfortable to push a sale, or they'd rather have the extra 5 minutes to finish rebalancing someone, or give an extra treatment, or do something extra massage, or to help their eyes, or just to make them relax, because they have a lot of high empathy for the person who's spending the money, spending the time,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't want to rush and they don't want to push. So the thing that makes them good at their job also makes it hard for them to then, okay, so do you want an eye cream? They
Got
don't
you.
understand, you know. And their fear of being that pushy salesperson and almost interrupting someone's zen, someone's balance, and the journey that they've created and kind of given their soul, their time and their energy to help that person, it feels to them that sales goes away from the grain. Most teams I look at, say you've got 10, 15, 20 people in the team, you'll have one or two that are achieving decent retail, and everyone's like, wow, what are they doing? Most of them are either the dominant or the I. So a D is for dominant and I is influencing. So they're the ones that's a bit more gung-ho, a bit more cheeky, might come across as too dominant. So they actually could affect some guests because they're maybe too brash, but their retail will be harder and higher because they'll just actually ask.
Mm-hmm.
The I gets really excited if it's a new product launch. But if they are not recommending products that they use and that they enjoy, they won't be excited to talk to the guest about it. And it might not be that they're using products that aren't great and they don't love. It's maybe from an age point of view or a price point of view. Maybe it's a totally different age bracket from them using it. And that's why they're not excited about it. So if they're not talking too much about it and being so excited about it, they won't then sell that. Depends on them, depends on their connection with the brand. So they're the ones who tend to sell the little spikes, but it's more on mood and if they see a customer is like them. So that's why in my opinion, the retail is quite sporadic. The last in the group is called the C, the cautious analytical. They're the team members who always ask for additional product knowledge training.
Ah, yes.
And actually, yeah, you could train them in product knowledge from the founder, and actually have them do the tours of the factories with the founder and with the scientist who's creating it, and it still really wouldn't be enough, because they don't feel comfortable to sell in case someone asks them a question that they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So in their head, they've got these little barriers. So it's not actually about the behavior, it's understanding how to communicate in a style that the guest buys. So understanding your own disc and how not everyone's the same as you, and how to tailor that information to what the guest style is. That's where there's a missing link.
Ah, so you understand who the therapist is in their disc profile, but then they
Yeah.
need to have a look at their guest and be like, okay, I think the guest is this profile, so this is how I would then communicate with the guest. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I'm talking about a beautiful product and I'm really into how it brings luminosity to the skin and how it's glowing, and I'm telling the story about it, but the guest is analytical, data driven, and precise, they're going to think you're strange. They're going to be like, why do I care about where the rose comes from? Why do I care about the story and the journey? I want to know about the science. I want to know how it drip feeds my skin throughout the night when I sleep. I want to know how long it takes to see results. So each style buys very differently, and each person who's delivering a treatment will be a different style themselves. So it's almost like a jigsaw if you can connect the dots.
It sounds complex, but I'm sure it's much easier because it's not delivered in the 10-minute webinar that we're doing now, obviously, because it's a much more technical in-depth.
Yeah, I know that, and I'm like, well, I could talk about this for 10 hours, but we're not here for 10 hours. But the studies come from Harvard, so there is some research, but it is super super easy to understand, and you can assess the guests from even how they sit. The D style is the one that when you even approach them, they're stood up and they're marching off, even though they don't know where they're going. They're the one the minute you shut the treatment room door that they're taking their bathrobe off and they're kind of naked to jump on the bed. So the D is very dominant. So if you then at the end are talking to them about a product, you pretty much go, do you want this one or this one? And they go, I'll have both. That's it. They're not really fussed about anything else. The I is the guest that you can't find. Yeah, exactly. Dominant. Give me it. I don't care about anything else. The I is the one that when you're shouting out their name and you're looking for them, they're either not listening because they're trying to take some cheeky selfies, or they've wandered off. They've disappeared. Or they're opening doors that say don't open. The staff only. They're wandering around so you can't find your guests. And they're the ones that want all the things like luminosity, brand new, exclusive, limited edition. The S's is your guest that's sitting there very patiently and is normally with someone. And they'll be there early and they'll be quite slow to walk. They'll not talk too much. They'll nod in agreement. And they'll probably use the same routine and the same product for 25 years, even if it's no longer the best routine and the best product for their skin and for their age anymore. And then the C is the one who looks at you as if they're asking you, what are you doing now? What routine? You almost think they're a mystery shopper because they're auditing the process of how many effernages they're counting. What's that spray? What's that? And they're guessing or they're asking questions about the ingredients to spray. But they're very analytical. So they're the ones who do want all the product knowledge and the detail. So you can spot it everywhere. But you're right, it is a full training session. And then it becomes something that you can't unsee.
But I think it's just as you're meeting anyone and everyone, whether they're a guest or not, you just start categorizing people as you walk around. I love it.
Absolutely.
In your experience, though, why do traditional sales training programs fail to deliver lasting results in spa environments? And how does the disc approach to changing change that? Because we know that sometimes you'll see, like you say, a peak. A product house will come in, you'll see a peak. Product house will go in, you'll see a peak.
I think it's establishing that it's a skill and whose job it is to provide the training. I'm very lucky. I work with a lot of product houses, and a lot of product houses invest in retail training. But are we allowing the right people to deliver it? Is the person who delivers the treatment training skilled in sales and communication? The people who work for brands, you actually go on treatment training and then you have a business account manager. They're two different departments, they're two different people. So who are we expecting to teach them sales skills? Is it really fair that the product houses have sole responsibility to teach you how to sell?
Mm-hmm.
And I like when there's dual partnerships. Because that's the benefit for everyone. But it's almost like a property saying the person who designed my rooms has to then sell my rooms. And
Oh.
I think that's quite interesting. Would you get the interior designer or the architect who designed the rooms and provided the pillows or the bedding to then be the person on the phone in the call centre making sure that the property room filled up? You wouldn't.
No.
So there seems to be a missing identity, and that's why I think it fails. Who is responsible for training and sales training specifically? And then the times, they're squashed. So even to learn how to deliver a facial or how to deliver a massage, there's a lot of demand for, of course, that costs a lot to take people out from bringing revenue, from delivering treatments. And if you've got a large staff base as well, that's hard. But when are you going to teach people how to learn these skills? And if it's squashed and you think you're going to teach someone retail in an hour,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can motivate someone in an hour, you can inspire someone to try, and then you'll have this spike, but is it really part of the culture? So the businesses that do it well have it in recruitment. So it's part of the recruitment process. So I'm looking for a good therapist, but I'm also looking for someone that has retail targets. And then during onboarding, they're trained, whether it be in what the standards are of the property or what the standards are from the brands they represent. But then they need to be trained in retail and how to sell, not product knowledge. I
Yeah.
really believe they're two very different things, but how to sell. So what cards are you using? What's the pre-consultation look like? I find so many missed opportunities when I go for treatments, and I have a very good job. Like you, we get to go to lots of spas undercover. It's a terrible job. And you see a lot. And I'm like, why am I in this beautiful, luxurious environment where I'm meant to be relaxed? I'm about to get naked. And then there's a stranger standing above me over a bed, asking me very personal questions. Or worst case scenario, they don't ask me anything at all. And then I'm naked on a bed and there's a stranger comes in and I'm now hurting my neck, which is normally why I go for a massage, to say, can you please just rub my neck? And this whole before the treatment consultation seems to have got merged with a health and safety audit. So yes, we have to make sure they've not got allergies. Yes, we have to make sure that hopefully they're not going to have any problems or conditions when they're in and be in any danger. And we need to know this legally, of course.
Yeah.
But then what about the human? Why is the human here? So there's a lot of silly questions that get asked, and they need to be updated. Like, what brings you here today? If someone asks me what brings me here today, I say Uber or my feet, because I think that's a silly question. I really dislike the question, what concerns do you have with your skin? Well, I don't have concerns. That seems so tragic. And what are we teaching women to have concerns with their skin? My concerns is like world peace and the turtles and plastic and remembering to pick up my child. Like, that's my concerns because I forgot it's a school day. I don't have concerns with my face. You're making me feel guilty now that I've indulged in a facial. And how do you find your skin? What do you mean find my skin? It was on my body when I woke up. Like, these questions are so old though, right? They're just, I think they're just lazy, old fashioned questions. So Can we ask better questions? Can we find out what the human wants, why they're here, and then is there a process to retail? And for me, that's the main part. Then you add disc, and you have to give each of the styles confidence to train. One of the best projects I used disc with was QVC. I'm working with a very talented presenter, Fiona Brackenbury, who used to work for Declior, Carita and Shiseido. And I'm super proud anytime I get to mention her name and say I was her coach, because she is one of the most knowledgeable, skilled professionals in the sector. And I used to write all her scripts behind the scenes and coach her before she went live on the television to do the QVC special values. And we took one product, it was a neroli oil, so it wasn't even anything fancy. And all we done was disc it. So we wrote it out in 4 different ways. So I would be behind the scenes. You could see all the data. You could see who was listening, how quickly they were buying. I mean, the data was spectacular. And each word had a 32-second delay between what words you said live on air and if that made people buy. So we'd highlighted which words got the best triggers for each of the styles. So it was an all-in-one oil. And that's all she said for the Ds. So every time she said it was all-in-one, that it corrects and hydrates, 300 people pick up the phone. Then when she said the word luminosity, all the I types were buying because of the glow and the luminosity, but that's quite a tricky word to keep getting into the same sentence. So she had to be quite creative. And then we said it was the founder's favorite, and that was very appealing to the S. And then we used the signs that drip fades the skin throughout the night, and that was for the C. And that first time we practiced, she was normally selling about 10,000 units in an hour. She sold 38,000 units in an hour and 15 minutes throughout the night. So it was £1 million of revenue from one product and 4 different words. Wow. So that's why I believe so strongly in disc.
Wow. That's incredible. That is incredible.
Yeah.
So
that was fun time.
Well, so back to spa. For spa managers who today want to empower their teams to sell with confidence and on authenticity as well, where's the best place for them to start, and how can disc profiling support that journey?
I get them to look at 5 different things, like a little checklist. The first one's belief. Does everyone believe that it's their job? If they don't think it's their job, if they don't think that they should, they could, that it's nothing to do with them, if it's part of their job, then you've got a huge barrier, because if there's no belief in the product, or if they have to sell the product, then you can't teach them anything, regardless of training, and it's trying to understand why they don't believe they should, or it's their job. The second thing is value. If you're selling a product range that the average price is 250, 300, 400, and you have a younger crew that work for you in their 20s, they maybe don't understand the value. Whereas me approaching 50, I definitely see the value in a £450 cream if it makes me look like I'm closer to 40. So it's understanding what the value is of the product, and if they don't like it, if they don't value it, if they can't understand how someone that's different from them would spend that, then that's your next point. Then it's behavior. So the disc. So does their D make them too dominant, too rushed, can't be bothered? Does the I make them run late because they've not set up their trolley? Are they forgetful? Is it dependent on their mood? If the guest isn't very talkative, or if the guest asks too many questions, does that put them off? If it's the S, do they need consistency, time to learn, a strong process where they feel supported? And the C does need some knowledge in the product. But once they've got that support and they've learned the product or used the product themselves, so finding out where the behavior is limiting them. The last 2 things is the process. As I mentioned, does the process actually work, or has it been merged with the health and safety, or is it just focused on service without the revenue? Has the medical card or something back of house to make sure everybody is safe made its way to a guest consultation? The 2 should be quite separate. Yes, I want to check you're fit and healthy and there's anything I need to be aware of, but I need to check as a human, what do you need? How can I help you? And then the skill, and that's the last part, teaching them the skill. I normally focus on teaching 4 good questions before that are not silly old fashioned questions. What's the priority? Where are the areas, like what's the number one priority from the facial today? Where are the 3 areas in particular they find that the skin is dehydrated or dry? Why those areas? Do you know? Is it seasonal? Is it menopause? Do you not know? That's okay. I'm going to look.
Yeah.
And when are you looking to see some change or results by? Because then I'm getting permission to sell. And then the last part of the skill is actually how to present the products.
Yeah.
I use a 2 option model, and then presenting the clothes. Most sales in most of the properties I go to are not made because no one asked me to buy.
Ah, okay, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And definition of asking me to buy is not giving me a brochure with 200 products on it and you've circled 2.
Hmm.
I don't believe that's asking, or not referring me to reception, or that's not asking.
Yeah, actually presenting the products and saying, would you like to take one of these with you today? That's asking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Based on what you told me, what I find through I look through your skin, we've got 2 options to help you when you go home, and presenting the options and knowing the price of the product. If your team don't know the price, it filters in some lack of disbelief to the person that's having to buy it. If you're not confident with the price, it makes people think that nobody would buy it or it's too expensive if you're fearful of the price. So that's my main things. I check belief, value, behavior, process, and skill, and almost give yourself a rating of 1 to 5 out of each of those, and then target your training. But consistency is key. If you set retail as a target, 2 products a day per person, per column, if you're seeing on an average of 6 people a day, then 2 products. Doesn't matter the value of the product because it depends on what treatment they're giving, but be
Mhm.
consistent with it and hold people accountable to it. That's when you're going to get some good results.
Yeah, I think you're right. Consistency and accountability. Like when you're going to set the targets, make sure that you're reviewing the targets with your team and consistently following up with your team. Yeah, are you doing what we've been training to do? Have you put the shared 2 products? Have you tried to close a sale? Because it's very
Yeah.
easy when you've done the training for it to kind of slip, and then you'll see another one of those troughs after training, won't you, if there's not that consistency and accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can't just go in and, well, you can go in and spike the revenue. That's always fun. If you need to get attention from higher up in the property to get some funding, we can come in and we can do a training. You can spike the revenue if you need to show that it works. But to have a long term change and a strong revenue consistently from a revenue stream of retail, you've got to be consistent with your focus and your approach.
Thank you so much for today. I've learned so much. I've learned that I'm dominant, probably with a little bit of influencer hidden in there.
Absolutely spot on.
But it's been really great. Thank you so much. I'm sure if
My
anyone has
pleasure.
any questions, they'll be able to reach out to you and talk to you in more detail. But I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks so much. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you.